Okay, guys, I am very excited for our next guest. I've been a big fan of this gentleman for many years, and they do say that in the paranormal world, you can meet your heroes. And here we are. I have got Lyle Blackburn with me. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited to have you on the show, man. I think I've been badgering you for a little while on the Instagram to try and get you on.
Right on. I know it. There's that's coming in on all media platforms, so it's
Yeah,
sometimes a juggling there. So
you're a busy guy. I mean, you're an author, a rock star. You narrate a great series. You've got a podcast. You've got your own source. I mean, is there anything you don't do?
I don't know. I'm starting to wonder that myself, and maybe I should scale it back, right?
No, you're cool, man. It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. Can I ask you what sort of got you into the cryptids and the paranormal? I know you're probably sick of that question, but for the freaky listeners that might not know.
Right. Well, it's relevant. So basically, I was one of those kids that just loved monster movies. Right. As soon as I saw monsters or comic books, anything like that, I was all into it. And somewhere around third grade, I got a book called Strange But True, and it had stories of Bigfoot, Yeti, Loch Ness Monster, kind of the big three at the time. And that really just captured my imagination because I'm like, wait a minute, these are like so-called monsters, and they could be real. People are saying they've seen them. And I grew up hunting with my father. He's a bow hunter. uh, I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and I've lived in Texas all my life. So we had been out in the woods and in small towns and the whole thing. So, that kind of played into it because, things like Bigfoot are seen in the woods. So, um, and I also saw a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek, which dramatized sightings of a Sasquatch-like creature in southern Arkansas, which was just north of where we lived in Texas, right across the border. So then it was like, oh wow, we got stuff like that here. And I was just enthralled with that, especially The Legend of Boggy Creek, because it was so southern and everything. And that just became a lifelong, you know, passion and study. And, years later, I ended up writing my first book, which was The Beast of Boggy Creek, which talked about that case, the sightings of the creature and the making of the movie. And that kind of then launched me, into doing more books and attracted the TV and the whole thing. So,
Yeah, your books are absolutely awesome, man. I've got this one here is one of my favorites, the Momo. Uh,
yeah.
Absolutely love this book, man. One of the first cryptid books that I read, and I was like, wow, man, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So the Boggy
Right.
Creek, you played a part in sort of bringing that film back, didn't you?
Yes. So when my book came out in 2012, things were pretty quiet, for the Legend of Boggy Creek case, if you will. And Bigfoot conferences were kind of ramping up, and that's just about the time that some of the more well-known shows like Finding Bigfoot were starting to air on television. Monster Quest had been doing stuff, and the book kind of, you know, I guess a lot of Bigfooters and things were interested in Boggy Creek because they had seen the movie. So then I became sort of a focal point as a guy who knows about it, obviously, written a book. And that gave me a platform to kind of share that story. And so, within that, I always thought, well, the film is, it's a sort of scattered about on various DVD releases and VHS. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool, to find a copy of the original film and do something? And then eventually the director's daughter, the movie was directed by Charles Pierce, and his daughter, Pamela Pierce, kind of came into the picture a few years after I wrote the book. And she then had the passion and more, connections and stuff. And so we worked together and eventually found a copy of the film. She was able to have that remastered by Kodak Eastman Museum. And since then, we put out the different versions, and the the new 4K HD Blu-ray version has a commentary track by me that you can select, and I talk all about, you know, what's going on in the film. So it full circle, it's just an honor to be, you know, if you told little Lyle that someday you'll, you know, they'll redo this movie and you'll be part of it, I would have not thought that's possible, but it's really cool to be a part.
That is cool. It's such a cool movie, man, as well. It's a special film. What are your have you had any experiences with Sasquatch?
Yes, several incidents over the years, um, and some of those being significant and actually in the Boggy Creek area. I mean, I've been kind of all over, especially in the South, and I've had um, things out there or things howling at us, or found a print or two and thought we were close. But actually in 2021, I had a possible sighting. I'm not going to say 100%, but I was in the Boggy Creek area. It was one afternoon, literally during the day, and we were in a place where long history of sightings, and some place where some incidents that had happened even to us previously over the years. And I just happened to be looking across this bayou channel. There's this it's very swampy there, Sulphur River bottoms. There's a bayou and you know, there's alligators in it, the whole thing, and you can't really walk across there. And we were standing on one side of it, and I saw this, something caught my eye. I thought something was moving, and I just saw this. It was actually reddish in color. You know, walked between sort of a trees and through a clearing, and it was huge, whatever it was.
Wow.
In fact, the color of your beard, that
Yeah. Yes.
it is very much kind of the color,
Wow,
honestly. And
man. That's awesome.
anyway, so that it, you know, by process of elimination, I'm not 100% sure, because I couldn't go after it, and I wasn't. I mean, these visuals are, you know, you only have just a few scant seconds to focus and look, and when
Yeah.
it walked by, I know it wasn't a hunter, and nobody lives over there. It's
Yeah.
um, it, the circumstances add up, and you can't even make this stuff up, because we had been in the town of the little town of Falk where all this has taken place, and we were there not 20 minutes earlier talking to a local that claimed he had seen the creature run across a road where there had been a lot of other sightings. And he literally said to me, it looked kind of like an orangutan, and it was
Wow.
like reddish in color.
Yeah.
And then I see that. So
Yeah,
pretty
man.
cool.
That is cool. Yeah, I don't think you get any ginger bears.
Right. I
You
mean,
might do, but
I've seen some cinnamon colored bears up in the mountains of New Mexico, fairly close up. But this just kind of had a different vibe than that in a way. And we really don't have a lot of bears. I mean, there's been a few bears down in southern Arkansas from time to time, but this thing was bigger, and definitely upright,
wow.
100% definitely upright. So I kind of eliminated the possibility of a bear, and I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know if roughly how big it was? If you had to guess how big it was?
Honestly, it was very hard to estimate that. You know, you think you can give a, I mean, I would, you know, 8 feet. I just did a wild guess, but later we came back with a boat, but it was after the fact, and went over there, and me and two other guys sort of tried to do the, you know, the recreation. You stand there, I'm going to stand here, kind of a thing. And it was honestly without any kind of marker saying it stood by this tree. You know, the distance plays a part on how big it was. I mean, you could just see it was big. I mean, this is at least as big as a human, to me much bigger.
Yeah.
uh, but as to give it whether it was 7 feet tall or 9 feet, it'd be very difficult to say with any accuracy.
Yeah, man, that's cool. That's one of my dreams, is to see a Sasquatch sometime in my lifetime. I mean, they talk about them. I've spoke to a lot of people that claim to have seen Sasquatch in the UK. I know these things are all around the world, and there's all sorts of creatures all around the world. I'd love to see that, man. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting anytime you sort of encounter strange things, even if it's an eerie howl that you can't explain. It gets your blood going, and just to see one now, of course, now it's like, okay, I want to see a better view, a closer view, another one, it just sort of goes on and on, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had any other experiences where you think you could have possibly seen one or been in close proximity to one?
Yes, I haven't had any other like where I believed I had seen one, but I was in Florida in the Ocala National Forest several years ago, and heard something that sounded like something was hitting on a can. And I was there with a researcher friend of mine, and I went in kind of into the brush and tried to see what this was, and something very big kind of ran up, a distance away. I didn't see it, I heard it. And then, I kind of stopped, and I could hear it. I would move towards it, trying to put the flashlight on it, and it would get up and run or whatever it was doing. And it just sort of kept ahead of me. And I was actually pursuing it, but it was moving away. Whatever that was, I'm very familiar with deer and the way they run, and mostly they don't make a lot of noise. I've been around a lot of wild hogs. Even I've come up on bears in the wild. They're very quiet. And whatever this thing was definitely seemed like it was running. It seemed, I don't want to say it was bipedal because I didn't see it running bipedal, but it gave you that sense. And it had whatever it was, it knew just to stay ahead, and I could never get up on it. Finally, I had to kind of give up because I was just going way off into the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
It uncharted, and I'm getting further away from my partner. So I eventually just said, I'll never get up on this thing, whatever it was. So I get back up there by the trail where we were, and we did go in. We found a can that was over there, and was it hitting on that can? I don't know, but what kind of thing would hit on a can? So that was a pretty cool experience, and the other things are just mainly things howling and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. As being a man of the woods, when you hear something, you know the difference, and you know that it's something unknown or interesting, man.
Right. You kind of have to eliminate what it could be. And certainly it's a challenge because most people may not realize that animals make, a dozen different noises each. You think,
Yeah,
oh, well, a bear goes raw, well, a bear makes mating calls and distress noises, and there's all these different things. And a fox makes really bizarre
yeah,
noises. You guys got those over there.
yeah, man. There's a fox every so often outside my house, makes these strangest sounds. And it's freaky,
Right.
man. It sounds like a screaming woman sometimes. Like it's really freaky. So yeah, I know all about that.
Right. So you kind of have to eliminate all that. And if you're kind of left with I don't know what it is, not a coyote or a wolf or this or that, you hear those things. And again, it's not physical proof of a creature, but it may indicate that you're in the right area. And it's certainly, spooky and fun at the very least. So there's been a number of those times where myself and very good experienced researchers that I'm with, these guys are woodsmen, that all this kind of stuff. If we all don't know what it is, then we're saying, well, probably a Sasquatch, but hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool, man. So what do you think a Sasquatch is? I know that's a difficult question. Do you think it's more related to humans or ape? Or are you more on the woo side? I know it's woo versus flesh and blood. I put myself in the middle because I hear all sorts of different things, and it's all possible, man.
Yeah, I'm with you in the middle. I like to kind of, I mean, I'll of course started with that sort of view of it being some undiscovered, more ape-like creature. I mean, we kind of had that sort of, it's a missing link thing, which is really a misnomer. There's no one link anyway. Um, but you kind of thought it's mostly ape, and then you listen to some sightings, and it does have a lot of human-like qualities, and you're thinking, well, is it feral humans that just went totally like, and adapted to those environments? Um, and you can entertain those sort of the flesh and blood scenarios, or is it descendants of Gigantopithecus? Those are all good theories. And then, but we're talking about 50 plus years of sightings being logged, of researchers really going into the brush, and now technology with game cameras and this and that, and you're still getting sightings, but you still don't have that proof. So I think that's why a lot of the woo stuff, or just more extreme theories, have come in, because people are just trying to figure out how this could be. If we do have sightings, and we trust that at least, hell, if only 5% of those are sightings, they're still sightings.
Yeah.
How people are seeing it, but we are unable to capture a good photo, or get one, a specimen. So I understand all those other theories, and I honestly, I don't know. I don't say I know, and I would have to see one up close to get a better sort of gut instinct on how human or how ape-like they were, or do they seem otherworldly. um I just don't know, so I just keep an open mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where we know? Do you think we'll ever find out? I mean, I know technology's getting better, and you know, maybe one day we'll find out.
Well, I mean, I've kind of felt like that for a while, that, oh man, any day, and I uh know some guys, and that have had good sightings, and some hunters that vowed that they would shoot one, and I've known areas where they're sighted frequently, and you think, well, sooner or later somebody's going to come up with one, and you think just any day you're going to hear that news or get a call, but it just seems to keep perpetually going on. So I would like to think that we could, solve at least one of these cryptid cases soon, but I don't know. They seem to be more elusive than we
Yeah.
can solve.
What's your thoughts on like the Patterson Gimlin film? Because for me, I feel like that's enough to I won't say prove it for sure, but it feels that feels real to me.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when I first saw it, it was unquestionably a Bigfoot. Your
Yeah.
first sort of, you're not, you're just looking at it from a neutral standpoint. And I was also younger. Then you start looking at it in a more critical fashion, and we've been able to enhance that video quite a bit, stabilize it, do all that kind of stuff. I see a little bit of both sides. It's not totally out of the human proportion. And we're doing a little bit of guesswork, a little geometry to estimate the height and stuff. But you put all that together, and you also put together the account from Bob Gimlin. And Bob is a good friend of mine that I've gotten to know over the years, and he's stuck by that story. And he's never really profited from it, and had no reason to purport any sort of story or hoax. And I think putting all those together, I lean towards it being a real creature. But again, I don't, you can't look at a film reel like that and say that's proof, because it's not physical proof. It's it's just that visual, and we're taking what we can out of it and trying to be as scientific as we can. But there's only what's in that film, and
Yeah.
no more. There's no lost footage that they they sat down and had a picnic with Patty or any other things. It's
Yeah.
like just those frames. And so, but yeah, I think all in all, that's probably a real creature.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my first taste of Bigfoot, obviously, as a kid, seeing that in a book, actually, and just being like, wow, man, like, I want to see one day.
Absolutely. I remember first seeing it. It actually scared me. I mean, I was pretty young and I saw that film, and I'm sure I don't know remember what I saw it on. It was television, maybe if it was on In Search Of or one of those old shows, but I was surely staying up probably late and saw it. And, and it really spooked me, because I remember many nights where I was out hunting with my father. And even when I was really young, he'd just throw me in like a ground blind and leave me there and go off. He wouldn't come back till it was just dead, almost dark. And, when you think, I'm in the woods and I'm just, you just have unknown fears like monsters under the bed. Well, when you see a Sasquatch and you're thinking, what if that thing walks up here? That was my thinking. So it was really kind of scary, but in a good way.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's the thing, innit? I'd love to see one, but I don't know how I would react if one just popped out in front of me. I might not be, I don't know. I'd like to think I'd get a good picture, but yeah, man.
That's the thing. You don't really know till that happens, what kind of reaction you're going to have. You may think about, oh, this is going to be great. I'm just going to get out my camera and take a picture. But like, even when I had that sighting,
You don't think about it.
It's unexpected and so quick. I mean, I
Yeah.
had my phone in my pocket, but there was no way I could get a picture. It was just simply there and it was gone. And, and even if you saw it closer and it stayed longer, you might be just like, WTF, I'm just standing here trying to soak this in. And it could be scary, or it may, some people say that I didn't feel fear. The creature seemed benevolent. But either way, you're still just going, holy crap, this thing is right in front of me. You may not be going, oh, hang on 1 second. Let me get out the phone.
Let me get the good angle.
Yeah. Could you just move a little bit to the side? And that's just not it.
No. I had an experience. I had a really clear UFO experience. I put it down as UFO experience, but it was very strange. Nothing like I've ever seen before. And me and my mother-in-law was watching whatever this was at the same time. And it was just like a weird shape in the sky, weird shapes in the sky. But we was watching it for 5 minutes, whatever it was. I had my phone in my pocket. I didn't even think of getting my phone out and taking a picture. I wish I did, but I was just taking it in, and we was just shocked at what we were seeing. So you don't always think about the picture.
Yeah, same scenario right there. You just, you saw it and people go, why didn't you take a picture? Well, I don't know. I just observed.
In the moment you're shocked, and yeah, man. Interesting stuff. So have you been over to the UK hunting cryptids, or?
Been to the UK several times, but not for hunting cryptids. That was part of, I'm a musician and I play in bands, and I actually came over and recorded an album there.
Oh, wow.
We lived over there for a month and recorded an album. That was back in the 90s when I was really young. And then my band that I have now called Ghoultown, the last time we played UK was in 2017. We played the Rambling Man Festival outside of London.
Oh, wow, man. That's cool.
and played at one show in London, which was a good show. So yeah, I've been there for that, but I've been in the countrysides and everything, and seen the, sort of the geography, but I didn't really just do any sort of cryptid research per se.
You didn't go check out Nessie up in Scotland?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to. We didn't have any shows up there, and I just, kind of traveling with the confines of that. But that's one place I definitely want to go, is to go to Loch Ness, just vacation or hang out or whatever. So that's kind of on the bucket list.
Yeah, man, for sure. Scotland's a cool place. I've not actually been to Loch Ness myself yet either, but that's somewhere I want to go for sure too. You must have been to some amazing places around the world. What are some of the best places you've been to in hunt for cryptids and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I've been to many, many different countries over the years. Sometimes, like I said, if it was on a tour bus and I have you just go in one place to another, you got to see a lot of the places, but you may not have time. But I mean, I remember going, we were in Poland, and places like that, and been in Germany, and sort of going into some of those woods. We did have some opportunities to kind of poke around and look around, and kind of go into the forests of the old world, if you will, and just sort of like you almost got that sort of like where legends of werewolves are born, and you just those the old growth forests, and of course the hills and stuff. I mean, I'm from Texas. It's pretty flat. I've been to, some mountainous places, but you get over there and there's beautiful areas. So yeah, I really enjoyed being in places like Poland, Germany, Austria. Was a cool place. And just sort of, I wish I had more time if there was sort of a cryptid case and I could afford to go as far as the UK, but it's like half the time I can't keep up with driving three states away or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Because you must have a logbook full of encounters, cryptid encounters. Is your main focus just the whole of the UK? USA, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough going on here that, I mean, typically, that's what I do, and I'm very much kind of in this southern vibe. So, a lot of the Bigfoot books and things early on would concentrate a lot on the Pacific Northwest, or at least the northern part. So I've kind of picked up the ball. Like, nobody had written a book about the Legend of Boggy Creek case, and it was aside from the Patterson film, this film was the most famous thing. So I'm like, well, why is there no book on this? Like the it says based on a true story. Here is the true story, the encounters. And so once I did that, and it's just got that kind of southern swampy flavor. So I've kind of done a lot of that, cryptids in the South. I mean, I did Momo, which is a little more north, but it's still kind of got a bit of that vibe along the Mississippi River. So that's been my primary focus, as opposed to, I'm just going to go to Scotland or whatever. If I had the luxury to do that, I certainly would spread out more, but it almost seems like there's as much as I can handle just in the US.
Yeah, yeah. You deal with a lot of cases. How often do you get people reaching out, trying to report stuff? Is it still something you're getting all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it kind of comes in waves, but it's pretty much constantly, somebody wanting to tell you something, or throwing a report, or informing you, have you seen this? So there's just a constant flow of information. And I kind of file it away or whatever for future use, or take the report and but I kind of focus in, like if I'm writing a book, then I'm actively trying to find people who have sightings in this area or related to that case or whatever. And then I have some um, focus on what to get, because you're just taking stuff at random all the time. Or you
Yeah.
look through your files and say, okay, yeah, I remember I've got some stuff from that. And so my books kind of tend to then dictate where the active research goes.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Other than the Sasquatch, what is your favorite cryptids? I know that's probably a question you get asked a lot.
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, I like the case of the Bishopville lizard man, and this was
Ooh,
a reptilian humanoid type creature seen in the state of South Carolina, which is another southern state east of Texas. And this was a crazy case back in the late 80s, in which the people of this area of this small town of Bishopville, which was on the edge of a place called Scape-Ore Swamp, these locals began to report encounters with this sort of brownish or greenish bipedal scaly looking humanoid thing. And one of the most famous reports was this young man named Christopher Davis, who claimed that this creature tried to get him one night when he had a flat tire out on this deserted road, and it tried to jump on the car and all this stuff. And so that all this kind of stuff got in the newspaper, and it was a big deal. And so it falls into that category of lizard man. That would be a cryptid category of lizard man with these reptilian humanoid sightings. I love those because I'm a big fan of the creature from the Black Lagoon.
yeah.
And this is in that zone of like these swampy, scaly, human-like things that you would think are just from a movie, but people have reported seeing these. That I like that. And of course, Dogman reports have kind of proliferated in the last several years, and always was intrigued by the Beast of Bray Road case, which was a case out of the state of Wisconsin. And we're talking about something that is essentially described like a werewolf. So there's another, I'm fascinated with monsters, and here we have people saying they've seen a real life werewolf. So that's cool. Mothman is one that I've followed and been up to that little town in West Virginia many times, and been out to the places where it was sighted, and that's always been intriguing. This
Love to go there.
Mothman case. So those are kind of my favorites, but I really like all cryptids. It could be river monsters, the lake monsters, any of it. It's all cool.
Yeah, man. Mothman's one of my favorites as well, for sure. Have you heard any encounters with people that have seen the Mothman?
Um, I'm familiar, obviously, with some of the original reports, and have spoken to some people that were involved in that. And I've gotten a few reports of similar kind of creatures, if you will, or entities from people, not necessarily even in the West Virginia area, of people describing sort of these flying humanoid things. So yeah, I've gotten those, and but as far as Mothman in that area, there's it's not like there's been this long history of sightings. It was a really crazy, wild case,
Yeah.
and it kind of dissipated, and then now what you get is a few cases, and then in one spot you may get something brewing. Michigan Mothman and other related ones.
Chicago's an area that you hear a lot of Mothman stories. Is that a more recent thing? But
yes, that's more recent. There was a flap of sightings of something that looked very much like what people would describe as the original Mothman. So then Chicago all of a sudden, which is obviously, this is a big city. This is a very odd, this isn't the usual we were out on a country road thing. This was in the big city, and there is sightings, and some of those credible, some of them not. But very intriguing that it was seen, in a big city, and there's certainly something to that. I haven't, I haven't looked into it extensively, but it's cool that people are reporting things like that.
I find it so fascinating. How do you sort of judge whether, this might be a difficult question, but how do you judge whether a sighting is credible or not? I mean, what do you need to sort of go, yeah? I mean, it's just a gut, like you get that feeling that you trust what they're saying.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, you get a sense of people, especially the more people you interview, you can kind of get a good sense on which ones seem like the most grounded individuals that are describing as best they can what they saw, and they believe that what they saw, and they're not prone to fancy, and it is a judgment call. And I'm not trained in detective work or anything, but you do get a good sense. And I also start from try to be neutral. I don't start with, man, I believe in them and this, I try to look at this and say, did this person see something we can't define or explain? Because I'm cool if it's, you want to only include the best stuff, there's plenty of others. So there's no need to include things that just don't seem true, or it seems like the person's making it up, or they're trying to get publicity. I just kind of eliminate those, like, okay, thank you very much. Because there's always some very credible reports. So you just kind of have to just use your judgments,
Yeah. This might be a difficult question as well, but what do you think cryptids are in a way all a part of the same thing? Or do you think it's that might be a difficult question? That might not even make sense. Do you think they're all coming from the same place, or in another dimension? What's your thoughts on these things?
Right. I mean, that's a good question, because if we have various types of cryptids and we are unable to prove them, they are in sort of the same category of unproven monstrous creatures. Whether they're related, I don't know if they're directly related to each other, but I think the phenomenon is related, because all the things that we apply to Bigfoot, we can apply, say, to Dogman. We have anecdotal evidence. We have witnesses saying they've seen stuff. We've got some footprints. We got people saying they have some hair, all the same stuff. We're still unable to prove it. Well, just a different description. Bigfoot, same thing.
Yeah.
What are these creatures coming in? Like, is it like H.P. Lovecraft, where they're crawling through dimensions? And is it sort of the proverbial chicken or the egg? Because you say, well, these creatures, if they're coming from another dimension, that seems like they would have tentacles and just be all over the place, or something we couldn't define. Why is it they're basically an incarnation of old legends and folklore? You see a Dogman, well, that's basically werewolf lore. You see a Bigfoot, that's sort of the wild man of the woods. However, you can say, well, the reason those legends are there in the first place is because people saw those things, and that created the legend. And it doesn't have to be a tentacled creature from another dimension. It could just be a werewolf. I mean,
yeah,
but no way to know. And I don't. It's fun to speculate and sort of envision this sort of how we want to quantify and rationalize all this stuff, but ultimately we're just grasping, and we're barely any closer to proving it than, people that were doing this in the generation before me.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's sometimes like a perception thing as well? Like someone sees a Sasquatch, but to someone else, that's a dog man, or something else, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that can be applied here, because it seems like, in when I first started doing this, I rarely heard a dogman report. There was rarely anything. There was Beast of Bray Road, and there was a few other random things or some old ones here and there. Well, now, I mean, there is podcasts that have somebody on there every single week with a dogman encounter. There is logs of stuff. There's people coming forward saying, and they're like, well, don't tell me it was a Bigfoot. I know it was a dogman. And that can be very well true if they saw it well enough. But I think now there is some give and take as to where, if you're, we're out here researching dogman, you see a big bipedal upright thing and you don't see it exactly from the right angle, I saw a dogman. But if you were out there Bigfoot researching and you saw some big hairy brown thing walk across there, we saw a Bigfoot. So there is open for interpretation. And I think that no fault of the person, but that's the way the human brain works. We have preconceived notions. Our brain tries to compartmentalize things and put them in things that we can understand. And if you're knowledgeable on, Bigfoot, then you may throw it in that category. Somebody that's, never heard of any of this stuff, they're probably the best witnesses because they don't even have any preconceived notions. So, all of those things play into the difficulty of trying to suss out what is the truth and what are people seeing, because it's skewed by our own notions and our own the limits of our own brain, I guess.
Yeah. That must be cool for you when you come across someone that's not really into the cryptid subject, but they've seen something that they can't explain, and they're telling you what you've seen, and like in your head you're going, yeah, that sounds like a Bigfoot, or that sounds like Mothman. That must be cool. Is that something that's happened a lot?
I would say, yeah, there's a good portion of witnesses that don't care about these things, or their knowledge of Bigfoot is, I thought there was one Bigfoot. It lived in Washington. The clues. They don't have Bigfoot on the brain. They're not looking for Bigfoot. They don't really even want to see one. Some of what I feel are the best witnesses are the people who are not looking for that. They're not already with a preconceived notion. I interviewed a lady who had a sighting in Arkansas in 2014, and she lived on an old country road down by the Sulphur River, and the Sulphur River runs from Texas and runs down through the Boggy Creek area, which creates the Sulphur River bottoms. But she lived up on the higher end of it. This lady, she didn't know really much about it. She heard of the legend of Boggy Creek. She knew of the movie. She kind of knew what Bigfoot was. And she was driving out at 10 a.m. One morning and had to turn around on this old country road and she'd forgotten something. So started to come back, and there was something standing in the road. It had just, when she had passed and it ran into the road and she stopped and turned around, she said this thing was standing there. And she said her first thought was, it's a kid in a costume. She said it was about maybe 5 feet tall at the most. Had brownish hair. It was covered in hair. It looked ape-like. She could, tell that it was some kind of an animal, is kind of the way she put it, but not an animal. And it was definitely standing on two legs, and it was just standing there looking at her. as if it was just sort of caught in the act or confused. There's a huge wall of woods there, and then that road, and then on the other side is a field, so it was kind of heading towards a field. She said it just sat there a couple of, several long seconds or whatever it was, and at that point she could tell this is not a kid, this is not a costume. And that thing, she said, it turned and just was gone into those woods as fast as she could even perceive it. She was shaken up. And this again was not a lady she didn't want any attention. I was lucky she would even tell me about it, and she did not want to ever see this again. And she did say, I'm saying, well, look, people see this is not something you're not crazy. People have seen the exact thing down here. And she said, well, she goes, it was maybe only 5 feet tall. She said, I thought Bigfoots were supposed to be really, really tall. I said, well, that's the thing, ma'am. They don't just pop out 7 feet tall. If these exist in any form, they grow. So what you saw could have been a younger one. There's families out there. And of course that didn't help, because the lady's like, oh my God, you mean there's more? It's like, sorry. So she began, you could tell her wheels were turning, and she began to see this as like, to put it into her world. Now I've seen this. Okay. It was, a teenager or whatever it was. And there's more of them. And, she probably never ever thought about anything beyond, oh, there's Bigfoot. People think it's one thing. And those are the kind of witnesses I like the most, because I could tell that lady, she 100% saw that. And it was 10 a.m. in clear view. How do you explain it?
That's awesome, man. And then there's guys like me and you that would give a foot to see something like that.
I know. I'm just like, oh, dude, lady, I would trade places with you in a minute.
Don't realize how lucky you are, man.
I know. She just wasn't having it.
No, man. It's still, a lot of people don't have any interest in the subject. And like when I told my dad I was doing a paranormal podcast and I'm talking about ghosts and cryptids and Bigfoot, and he was like, Bigfoot? We can talk about Bigfoot. There's one of them in the USA. I was like, no, Dad. Come on, man. Right. There's so much to learn.
Right. And that is what most individuals think, if they haven't really thought about it, because they haven't had interest. So you got to get people outside of that box, and try to, and that's what I do. It's like, to explain, look, it's I'm not trying to sell you on it or anything, but here's kind of what I've observed. And you can tell they start thinking, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Yes, they can be seen. They can live in here in these swampy areas. I mean, I can drop you in one of those swamps in there with no phone, and you'll never find your way out. They're thick and rugged, and you can easily conceal yourself. There's plenty to eat. We could, a feral human could go back in there and live if he knew how to live off the land. And if he didn't want you to see him, you would never see him.
Yeah, for sure, man. Especially in the US, you must have areas that are untouched by people completely, like massive areas. So they could
there's definitely more of that. Especially in the traditional Pacific Northwest home of Bigfoot, there is a lot of forestry out there. The South is a little more broken up into chunks, to where these things would have to do some moving, but they're still very wild places. And people kind of envision, oh, we live all in the cities and stuff, and they see only what's sort of connected to that, maybe drive to the next town. But, veer off down into some of these more heavily forested areas, and you realize, okay, yeah, there's some remote places that if there's a small population of these, they could, be remote and secluded.
Yeah. Do you feel like with the cryptid subject in general, it seems to be getting more popular, I would say. It feels like more people are willing to come out and talk about things in the paranormal in general. I think a lot of people don't like, in the past, wouldn't like talking about experiences and stuff, but I feel like there seems to be a shift in recent years. Obviously, work like that you do and stuff like that. And do you think more people will start coming out with experiences that, because a lot of people don't like sharing their experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there is more people coming out and saying they've seen something weird. It's much more acceptable now. I mean, they've been exposed to more than a decade of people on TV, on cable television shows saying they've seen Bigfoot and other weird stuff. And like, well, those people don't seem too weird. I guess I can tell somebody. Whereas some years in the past, people were definitely more reluctant to do that because, somebody would think you're crazy. It could ruin you ruin your job and your respect and everything else. But it's, people have seen it on the internet now and it's more acceptable. So I think that's added to why we have more reports now. And it doesn't mean those incidents happened yesterday. Some of these reports are people saying, well, this was 25 years ago and I was hunting and they had something that they said, we told a few people, we got laughed at, so we just shut up.
Yeah, you hear that so much.
Yeah, but then they run across somebody like you or me that seems genuinely interested and want to know their story. And they realize, oh, I can tell these guys my story because they're not going to laugh. And now all of a sudden they have a platform to speak, whereas they didn't before. So I think that's added to the volume that we're getting now. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's like lizard men running amok and stuff. It just means that more of the people who have encountered weird stuff are willing to come forward.
Yeah, man. Where's next for you? What's the next location? What's coming up next for you? Is there any other books coming or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I've always got a long list of things that I want to do and try to do. A book is probably due because my last book came out a couple of years ago. So it's usually about every 2 years. I ramp that up and do something. So I've been doing some research and study to do that. I'm always, I just narrated a film on the Small Town Monsters company, a documentary. I narrated a Chupacabra movie, so that just came out. The release of the Legend of Boggy Creek, things I've just been working on, and then a lot of conferences. There's a lot more of these speaking engagements and things, which is great. You can meet people, network, and obviously it's nice if you're an author, if there's a platform in which you can sell books. I've been doing a lot more conferences, and that opens up the doors to new things. So that's typically how it goes now. It's just sort of just juggling a lot of things. But yeah, definitely the next thing on the list is a book. And I've also created that podcast, Monster Bizarro.
I was just going to say, awesome podcast, man.
Thank you. I tried to do something that was a bit different. The format was a little something that was unique and followed the way I do the narrations in the Small Town Monsters movies. So I'm always kind of like, okay, I gotta what next episode, but yeah, there's a bit of juggling, so everything's kind of sporadic.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. The podcast is awesome. The things you narrate I think you've got the perfect voice for it. I really do.
Right.
I love it, man. I love it. It's awesome. I want to ask you about paranormal experiences, possible paranormal experiences. I think I heard you on Cryptids of the Corn podcast. Did you say your house was haunted? Am I remembering that correctly, or have I?
That is correct.
Yes. Is there anything else going on there? Have you had any activity in that side of things?
It's been kind of quiet lately. When I first I bought this house close to a year and a half ago, and it, it's not an old haunted house out in the woods or anything. It's a newer home, which was an upgrade of the home from what I lived before. However, the previous owner truly died in this house, and I had to do a little research on that. It wasn't all this thing. I knew it was something that happened, but it wasn't divulged to me. So myself and a friend kind of did some reconnaissance, but there's been several weird things that have happened. Things flying across the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Pictures going forward, falling over, weird noises, almost like footsteps, a number of things. And that right off the bat, it was like all these things. And I wasn't the only one that observed it. A good friend of mine was here, and we saw this piece of a drink shaker thing literally just come off the counter and go all the way across the room.
Wow.
Tried to recreate that. I don't know how to explain it, but I wasn't the only one that saw it. So,
wow,
so yeah, it's sort of like that what we were talking about before. I'm not even looking for ghosts, and I'm not even trying to actually buy a haunted house. It's cool if I like it, the idea.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying, and then suddenly here I am, like the monster guy with my ghost. But
wow.
it almost seems like at first it was a lot of weird stuff, and I thought, man, if this ramps up, my daughter is going to be scared. But it's kind of mellowed, which maybe the spirit, if there's a spirit here, has gotten used to us or realized that it's cool. I don't know. That's just my thought.
That's interesting, man. So you had like poltergeist activity going on there, man. Interesting. Right. Wow. So have you always been fascinated with that side of the paranormal as well, with ghosts? And have you had any other experiences in that aspect?
Yes, I've actually seen what I believe is a ghost, or at least what you think of as a ghost. And that happened back when I was in a senior in high school. I had a friend who lived in a house who claimed that they had seen the ghost of a boy in there. And it wasn't just him. His parents, who were very no-nonsense people, said they had seen it, and even several of my friends. And one evening I was sitting there, we were going to go out, and I was sitting with a view of where the front door is, and there was a side room, and then it went to a hallway. I'm looking kind of at the TV, and right out of the corner of my eye, some movement catches my attention, and I look up and I see like a whitish figure about the size of a kid walk right across that area. And when I say walk, I mean it, was a little hazy, I guess, but it went across there, and I was like, dude, I just saw the ghost. And my friend was very nonchalant. Oh yeah, we've seen it there, and it's like it's no big deal. But I was like, dude,
yeah, wow.
And so that was that, and I was interested in basically all the paranormal when I was young. I mean, anything like not just seeing the Patterson-Gimlin film or cryptids. If I saw, UFO stuff or ghost, it didn't matter what it was, I was watching and read many ghost books and so forth. So, and I still love all those subjects, but I can't, it's a little much to be an expert. Well, I don't even say I'm an expert, but you got to focus in. So I became the monster in the woods guy. Yeah. And, you got your authorities on ghost hunting and other things, but I do love all those subjects, and I sure will listen to, if somebody comes up and said they have a ghost encounter, I'm listening to that too,
Yeah, man. I'll tell you my ghost encounter after the show. I've said it so many times on this show, but right. Wow, man, that's a cool experience. That is a cool experience. When you see something like that, it changes everything. Like the possibilities are endless because you know that there's more. So anything is possible. And it's so cool, man.
Right. I mean, I saw something that, again, I can't say that was a dead person or a kid or a, all I can say is that what I saw is what you think a ghost looks like. And if somebody else tells me they've seen something like that, I'm like, yeah, I saw that. I mean, we may not can explain it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen,
Yeah. Could you see features on that ghost?
Mm-mm. No, it was too whitish, say fuzzy, but just not. Yeah, it wasn't. There wasn't enough focus on it like that. It was the shape of a upright walking humanoid, shape, but I couldn't really. And it was fast enough to where, I mean, maybe if I studied it or long enough, I could have saw things into it, but I could just see the shape of a person just right by there.
Oh, that's cool, man. That is a cool experience. Is there any other ghosty experiences you've had, or?
Um, that was the only sighting I had of a ghost. I had friends that had told me about encounters back in those days, and I actually used to go out into graveyards out in the woods, and we would put a cassette recorder on it and try to put it on the grave and turn it on, record, and then listen to it back. This was way back in high school, and a little bit after that we would just do stuff like that. And but I don't recall anything good coming of it, as far as I never saw anything, or we never got anything on tape or anything.
Yeah. What about UFOs? Have you had any experiences with UFOs?
I've never seen a UFO. I mean, I've seen stuff, in the skies, but I wouldn't say I was an unknown craft. But yeah, I mean, I have friends that have seen UFOs and things, but I haven't ever seen one.
Not yet.
Not yet. I did see a spook light, a ghost light.
Oh,
There's a
wow.
road in Texas. It's called Ghost Road. It's actually the real name of the road is Bragg Road, but it is long, said to have these mysterious lights that appear. And myself and a friend were driving down that road one night and saw a light that we're sure what it was, and eventually kind of got up on it close enough, and it just goes out. I'm like,
Wow.
and we're like, it was literally right there. We got out and we're like, there's nothing there. I was like, we saw the light. It wasn't a reflection of our headlights. I mean, it was its own light.
Wow.
And I don't know how to explain it, but we definitely saw it.
Was that like an orb or?
Yeah, it was round, orb shaped, kind of. Uh, it was fairly bright when it started up, and then just sort of would come and go. I mean, I have it. I mean, I have it on video, even
Wow.
filmed all that. So, but
That's awesome,
all
man.
you see is the light. It's like um, there's some source there, and I don't. The way it dissipated and disappeared, it wasn't a car. It's not like a car then passed, or we didn't come up on there and there was a car parked in the woods. You couldn't even pull a car into those woods.
Yeah.
There's just no more light. I'm like, that's where it was, and it's gone.
And loads of people see this phenomenon as well. That's interesting, man.
Yeah, it's one of those spots. I mean, I don't know if you guys have any of the legendary ghost light spots, but we've got several in Texas, the Marfa lights, um, uh, and then that's also in Texas, and you've got the brown lights and several other that places where people constantly have seen them over many years, and that's the same as this Bragg Road, Ghostlight Road.
Yeah.
Many people have seen it.
Cool experiences, man. You've had some awesome experiences.
Right.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It's been absolutely awesome having you on the show. It's been a true pleasure. It sort of feels quite surreal, really, because I know you don't know me, but I've known you for years. It feels very strange talking to you.
That's
man.
right.
But
That's cool,
thank
man.
you
I
so
appreciate it.
much. Everything that you do is awesome. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find out more about me at lyleblackburn.com. And that's got links to the various projects and more information. And, you can get my books there at my online store, but of course, they're also available on Amazon. So you can get them in your respective countries. And just drop by and see what I'm doing and where I'm going to be around the country a lot at events. So, then somebody could come up and share experiences or just hang out.
Awesome, man. Well, I will share all your links in the show description. Lyle, thank you so much, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you're welcome back on Let's Get Freaky anytime, man. Thank you so much.
Right on. I appreciate it.